Welcome, one and all, back to the Viper's Nest, where it's been about a week since I made a video, I think. Let me fact check myself on that, but regardless of how long it has actually been, that space of time between my last video and this one, a whole lot of stuff has happened, and I want to talk about a great deal of it. But the truth is that I didn't really know where to begin, and apparently it's been 12 days since I've posted something as of the recording of this video. My apologies. Yeah, I really didn't know where to start, and I didn't want to cram it all into one singular video because I try to keep all the videos except for my Sunless Skies episodes down to a reasonable time. But, you know what, I figured it out. I figured out what we're doing today. So, we are going to attempt to answer the question, could the Monster Hunters from Capcom's Monster Hunter series survive in Warhammer 40k? I chose to go with this one because, as of the making of this video, just a few days ago, Monster Hunter Rise got released on consoles other than the Switch and the computer. So I've been playing it on PS4, and that makes me very happy because I can now play it with my wife without having to purchase an entirely new Switch with another copy of Monster Hunter. It was just easier and cheaper to buy it twice on PlayStation, so that's what we did. So we've been playing that. So, let's dive in, shall we? Who, what, why are the Monster Hunters? Well, the Monster Hunters are hunters who hunt monsters. Shocking, I know. Depending on the game you're playing, the motivations for the hunters are different. It could be anything from attempting to save your home village from a rampage of monsters. It could be hunting for research purposes. You could be hunting for money. There's all sorts of reasons why hunters hunt monsters. But when the monsters are hunted or captured, you then take their skins, bones, and organs, craft them into fancy pants, armors, and nice clothing to wear around and show off to your friends. That's about the long and short of the gameplay of Monster Hunter. So, what are the Monster Hunters? We answered the why. The what is a bit more complicated. So, there is lore to these games, but that lore seems to be kind of hard to find. So, in my research, why the Monster Hunters can do what they do is because a long-ass time ago in the Monster Hunter world, humans went to war with creatures called Elder Dragons, which are like Monster Plus, I guess. Like, most monsters in the game are just big critters. Elder Dragons are they're more like forces of nature than they are actual creatures. But anyway, so humans, for some reason, went to war with the Elder Dragons, and in order to fight this war, the humans they engineered themselves super soldiers. And after the war was over, everyone was all fucked up. I think, the Elder Dragons and the humans both, drove each other very close to extinction before they finally stopped. And the hunters that we play as in the game nowadays are descendants of the super soldiers that fought in the Elder Dragon War, as I'm going to call it. So essentially you have an entire race of Captain America-style super soldiers. That is what the Monster Hunters are. Who they are? They're people. That's going to be important in a little bit. So, now that you have a very, very, very brief, truncated overview of who and what the Monster Hunters are and why they do what they do, let's toss them into Warhammer 40k. Can they survive? Well, in my researches, that actually turned out to be a much more complicated question than I was expecting. So, this really comes down to physical capabilities and, I guess, mental/spiritual capabilities. Let's start with the physical side first, because people drastically underestimate just how insanely strong and tough the Monster Hunters are. So let me explain. So, like I said, the Monster Hunters are super soldiers, or the descendants thereof. And to be perfectly honest, I mean, I think a Monster Hunter would give a Space Marine a run for its money on just how insanely strong and durable a Monster Hunter is. So, Monster Hunters wield weapons of absolutely ridiculous proportions, and they also wield those weapons while wearing armor that would be insanely heavy. If I remember the Because Science video that they did for Monster Hunter World a couple years back now, I think, they calculated out that the Greatsword, specifically the Devil Joe Greatsword, the Berserker Sword, would weigh somewhere between I want to say 350 to 400 pounds. I highly recommend you go watch that video. It's very cool. Just type in Because Science Monster Hunter. You'll find it. Just honestly, the whole of the Because Science channel is great, but specifically, go watch that Monster Hunter episode, and I don't know, maybe correct me down in the comments if I'm remembering improperly. Point is, just the Greatsword itself, weighing anywhere between 300 to 400 pounds, is absolutely ludicrous. But then you stack on stuff like, I don't know, the Diabolos armor is one of the bulkiest ones that comes to mind, or like the Uragon armor, I think would also be up there in terms of just sheer insanely bulky armor. Alright, so you have the images of those two in your mind. So, a 350 to 400 pound sword, plus probably another couple of 100 pounds of armor slapped onto a Monster Hunter. Not only can that Monster Hunter very easily sprint in this armor and swing around that gigantic sword like it's made of freaking cardboard, at least in Monster Hunter Rise, they can also sprint straight up like a sheer cliff face while lugging around the multiple hundreds of pounds of weapons and armor. It's insane. And even outside of the armor, a Monster Hunter is capable of taking a hit from a charging, multi-ton monster and just get back up and keep going. I mean, they'll probably have to chug a healing potion, but the fact that they can take that hit in the first place and not have their bones turned into fucking gravel is insane. So I hope I'm selling you enough on just how insanely tough and strong a Monster Hunter would have to be. And honestly, don't even fucking get me started on the physics of wire bugs, which you'll know what wire bugs are if you've played Monster Hunter Rise. And at this point, now that it's out on basically everything, there's no reason you shouldn't play Monster Hunter Rise, except, if you can't afford it, in which case I completely fucking understand. But if you can, you should play this game. So, wire bugs, the Monster Hunter essentially uses wire bugs not only to help them do unique attacks depending on the weapons you're wielding, but also for mobility and traversal purposes. They can send out the wire bug into the air with a line of iron silk attached to it, and then the Monster Hunter can yank themselves and send themselves flying through the air, again, while carrying multiple hundreds of pounds of armor and weapons. So, okay, just the yanking power of the Monster Hunter's arm alone, to be able to send them flying through the air like that is ridiculous. And I'm sure there's some kind of elasticity science with the iron silk. But then you also have to consider just how much staying power the wire bug is having to put out. I feel like in order to remain stationary in midair while a Monster Hunter yanks themselves, who are probably heavier than the average human because of increased muscle and bone density, plus all of the armor and weapons they're carrying, to withstand and remain still under the yanking power of somebody who can send that much weight and mass flying through the air and be able to stay still based on wing power alone, I feel like the wire bug should probably be having to, output something like hurricane force winds in order to be able to stay still. I'm not a good scientist, I'm sorry. Like I said multiple times in multiple videos, I wanted to be a fucking history teacher, not a science, so all of this crap escapes me. Someone better suited to science braining things do me a favor and tackle wire bugs. That'd be great. I'd love to hear about that. So, anyway, back to it. Like I said, I think a Monster Hunter on sheer physical terms could probably give a Space Marine a run for their money with how insanely strong and durable they are. So, in light of that, as far as like combat prowess goes, I don't see Monster Hunters having too terribly much trouble in the Warhammer 40k universe. I mean, they might have to figure out spaceflight, and that might be a problem for them, but just looking like on the surface, Monster Hunter technology is shockingly deceptive in how actually advanced it is. Not only do they have actual guns, they call them bow guns, which I'm assuming the bow part of the bow gun, that has to be some kind of like loading mechanism. I don't know, I would love to see a heavy bow gun taken apart. But they also have like energy conversion technologies for like the switch axe and the charge blade, where just striking a monster somehow charges up energy inside these weapons, and then that energy can be stored and discharged later. So there's also that kind of technology, but they're also still working with things like sailing ships. Like, I don't think I've ever really seen a motorized vehicle outside of, like, I know there's a train, like a tiny little train that the palicos, the feline companions, use in Monster Hunter Rise to, like, help them transport food around some of the areas. But, yeah, I've never seen anything like, I don't know, a gas-burning motorized car. So, I don't know, Monster Hunter technology is kind of weird. I'm assuming some of this technology is what is left over from, like, the war with the Elder Dragons, and I'm guessing a bunch of the other stuff was, like, kind of lost, and they're still working on recovering it. But they at least know how to build weapons and armor good, and that's a very important thing. They also have things like healing potions, which they can just chug a potion and have all of their wounds recovered, so they also know some kind of like chemistry and biology science, so that's good too. And then we get to the armor of the monsters, and oh boy, this I think strays very close to like things like magic. I can't remember a time where anything in Monster Hunter was outright stated to be like, oh yes, this is actual magic. Like, I know spiritualism is a thing. I think it's the Fatalis armor. If a Monster Hunter crafts and wears Fatalis armor in, I want to say like generations or something like that, part of the lore is that the armor drives the Monster Hunters to keep fighting and keep killing, and eventually I guess they will metamorphose into a new Fatalis, I think. That's another thing I could be wrong about. My first Monster Hunter game was World, and I didn't really want to go back and play the older games because I saw some friends playing Monster Hunter on the 3DS, and honestly, on the tiny screen of the 3DS with all the stuff that's going on like the user interface of Monster Hunter, it looked like somebody fucking puked on the screen. I didn't like it. I didn't want to do it. Anyway, so there's that, plus the fact that any other armor you craft also gives you bonuses in terms of like armor skill, and some of it makes sense. Like, you take for example, like, I don't know, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but like usually like a fire breathing monster will give you resistance to fire if you make armor from that monster, and that makes sense because, you know, the monster's skin and bones would be like specially adapted to resist heat and fire. So okay, that makes sense. I don't understand why wearing a certain amount of a certain type of armor would just naturally make you do more damage, because for the most part, from what I've seen, Monster Hunter armor isn't powered armor. There's a few that could pass for that, but they're the exception to the rule. Most of this is just standard armor plating or leather or, you know, anything else that you would wrap around your body to be between you and the sharp claws of the beasties you're trying to kill. So things like increasing your attack damage just by wearing this armor, or in the case of like the Val Hazak armor from Monster Hunter World, or the Kushala Daora armor in Monster Hunter Rise, which I don't fucking know why they gave that ability to Kushala Daora. Point is, wearing this armor gives you permanent health regeneration. I don't understand. Like, I don't think you're plugging the still living armor directly into your fucking body with those particular sets of armor, but somehow they just boost your recovery that you have infinite health regeneration. Because normally, if you haven't played a Monster Hunter game, when you take damage, the life bar at the top of the screen decreases, but there is a red chunk attached to it, and if you avoid taking damage long enough, you will refill that red chunk of your health bar, just naturally on your own with no items aiding you. The Valhazak armor, or the Teostra armor in Rise, allows your regeneration to surpass that red line, and you can just refill yourself all the way up to full. So, full on, like, Wolverine-style regenerative healing. I don't know why the armor, just wearing the armor would allow you to do such things. I don't want to say magic, because, again, I don't think it's magic, but I also don't understand the mechanism behind it if it's science. The point is, you get a lot of really weird effects like that from Monster Hunter armor, so I'm assuming it's something to do with the smithing process of the armor that the hunters understand that I just don't. Like, I don't know, keeping the, like, part of the essence of the monster still in the pieces that's used to make the armor. I don't fucking know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Anyway, so, back to it. They're in the 41st millennium. What are they going to do? Well, I think they're instantly going to start kicking ass. And you know what? I would love to see it. So, where would these monster hunters be served best in kicking ass? Honestly, I think once they establish themselves somewhere, that the Inquisition of the Imperium would start noticing what's going on with these guys and seeing them just, killing, like, demons. Well, I don't know, maybe not demons necessarily. I don't think the monster hunters would go after demons, but, like, definitely other alien species, like the Tyranids, for example. I think the monster hunters would see the Tyranid and be like, oh, hell yeah, we can make some dope shit out of the Tyranids. So they would start, like, killing Tyranids and harvesting their plates and making armor out of the Tyranids, and using the monster hunter style of, I don't know, I guess somehow imbuing armor with the abilities and the essences of the things that they've killed. They could make some dope fucking Tyranid armor. Like, I think adaptive armor or adaptive defenses in some way or another already exist in the Warhammer 40k universe. I think it's like shields or something like that. I'm pretty sure they're rare though. Anyway, so the monster hunters would make armor out of the Tyranids, and then being that the monster hunters were the ones making the armor would be like adaptive and would improve itself as the monster hunters kept going into battle. So the Inquisition, specifically the Ordo Xenos, would be like, whoa, these guys are awesome. We need to, like, hire them on and help, like, get them to help us, like, specifically deal with Xenos races, because, boy, there's a lot of death planets in the Imperium alone, but definitely in the galaxy at large. Lots and lots of death planets, like Catachan, Fenris, Barbarous, and honestly, the monster hunters, being the go-getting huntery types that they are, would look at those planets and see the monsters living at those, and they would just, like, shit themselves with joy. Be like, yes, put us on that planet. We are going to conquer and study the shit out of it. And by study, we're going to kill everything on that planet and turn its corpse into a hat to wear around to impress our friends, and maybe learn something along the way. So, physically, just on the physical side of things, the strength, the toughness, the speed, and the ingenuity of a monster hunter, I think would allow them to not only survive, but probably thrive in the 41st millennium. But here, it's on the other side of things, the spiritual/mental side, is where we start to run into problems, because when you really break it down, outside of their super soldierness, monster hunters are still people. And people are not perfect. People do stupid things like fall to chaos. And there's definitely some hunters out there who I think enjoy hunting a little bit too much, like a little bit more than is healthy. They get just a bit too into it. There's one of them in the Monster Hunter Sunbreak DLC, if I remember correctly. Her name is Luchika, and a lot of people don't want to hunt with her because she goes a little bit blood happy when she gets into a hunt. And you know what? That's the path to Khorne and or Slaanesh right there. You know, enjoying a little bit too much, overindulging too much, having a bit too fun of a time spilling blood. That's a real good way to fall to chaos. So just with like every single other human in the Imperium, the Monster Hunters would be in danger of, you know, chaotic influence and corruption. I mean, that I'm not saying that that's like, you know, a big failing. That's just kind of the price of being human in the 41st millennium, is that you're always going to run that risk of falling to chaos, or, you know, getting involved with Xenos species that you probably shouldn't be getting involved in. So, yeah. On the spiritual / mental side, I give the Monster Hunters a little, like, you know, I'll put them slightly above normal people, because being tenacious and having willpower is also a big part of being a Monster Hunter, because whenever you get knocked back down, you gotta get back up. If you fail a quest, you know what? Go back to town, have yourself a meal, queue up that quest again. You gotta keep going, gotta keep beating your head against that brick wall, because eventually that brick wall's gonna break. But, you know, all the willpower in the world still doesn't make you immune to chaos influence, so the Monster Hunters are still gonna be running that risk. But on the whole, yeah, I think Capcom's Monster Hunters would do pretty goddamn good in the 41st millennium, assuming they're just not dropped right into the void of space and, you know, die of suffocation, because, you know, that shit can happen. But, you know, also, I'm not gonna lie, I think it just, devil's advocate here, it'd be really fucking cool to see, like, a Monster Hunter given, like, the Mark of Khorne or some shit. Just because, you know what, I like villains just as much, if not more, than I like heroes. Especially in Warhammer 40k. I find the villains way more interesting than I do the heroes. So, you know what, Chaos Corrupted Monster Hunters? I'd be down to see that shit. That'd be pretty fucking cool. I'd love to see it. But I've gone for just a little over 20 minutes now, and I think that's a good length for a video. So, thank you for coming over and listening to this video. I'd love to see your thoughts on the matter in the comments. Be pretty freaking cool. A like and a subscribe would definitely be appreciated. I highly recommend you play Monster Hunter Rise now that it's on everything. Also, go check out the Because Science channel. They do a lot of good sciencey work over there. So, that's it for me. See you next episode, and as always, have yourself a wonderful day.